Hello everybody, this is Bill from turboDial, and this video is a workflow automation demonstration. You're probably aware, if you're an Infusionsoft user, that Infusionsoft is best in class at marketing automation. But for the same reasons it's good at marketing automation, it's also an excellent tool for workflow automation. And turboDial is designed to work very closely with Infusionsoft when it comes to automation, and this is a demonstration that's going to walk through an example of using workflow automation with turboDial and Infusionsoft for your SMS messaging follow-up. So automating an SMS follow-up workflow. Let's talk about the scenario we're going to describe in this demonstration. So when a contact sends us an SMS, we want to automatically add them to a follow-up list. Now obviously if you're just getting 1 or 2 SMSs a day, this is not an issue you need to be automating. But if you're getting dozens and dozens, because you do a lot of SMS messaging with people, then you may in fact want to be automating your workflow follow-up. So we're going to use that follow-up list. Once contacts get added to it automatically, we will use that follow-up list with turboDial to work on those contacts that need a reply. And then we want to automatically remove a contact from the list when we have done one of these things. Either we send them an SMS back, or we make a call back to that contact, or we decide that we're going to follow up in a different way, and so we save a specific call outcome for that contact. So they send us an SMS, they get automatically added to a list. We sit down and we work on that list with turboDial, and then they're automatically removed from that list once we have followed up with them. That's the story for our workflow. Let's say that once again, but in go in more detail. So here's the step-by-step scenario. Step 1, the contact sends an SMS inbound to us. Step 2, our automation between turboDial and Infusionsoft adds that contact to the Infusionsoft saved search called SMS follow-up needed. Next, an agent sits down and spends some time doing the follow-up. They load the SMS follow-up needed list from Infusionsoft into the list dialing features of turboDial. In step 4, that agent navigates from one contact to the next, working on each one. And when they get to the contact that sent us this SMS inbound, they're going to choose one of these actions. They're going to send an SMS back to that contact using turboDial, or they're going to call that contact using turboDial, or they'll use turboDial just to save a call outcome saying SMS follow-up complete, indicating that they've used some other method to follow up with that contact. Last step, step 5, automation is going to remove the contact from the list so they are no longer on the SMS follow-up needed list. So what are the components we're going to need to do this automation? We're actually going to show you these components in a minute, but let's go through a summary of what they are. First of all, we do need in Infusionsoft a saved search list, and we'll call it SMS follow-up needed. We're going to set up a call outcome. You can go into your turboDial support guides and see how to set up call outcomes, but we're going to add one to our list of call outcomes, and we're going to call it SMS follow-up complete. Then we're going to go into our campaign builder in Infusionsoft, and we're going to build some automation. And we're going to set up 4 API goals that will all be triggered by turboDial. We're going to set up a goal for SMSs received. That's when they send us an inbound SMS. We want that goal triggered. And then we want to set up some goals for when an SMS is sent, when a call gets connected, or when a specific call outcome is saved. With those 4 API goals, we'll be able to trigger the automation that we need to do to manage our list in Infusionsoft. Those goals are going to trigger some sequences to add and remove contacts from our list, and that's going to involve adding and applying and removing a tag. And we'll also be using an HTTP post in these sequences that will invoke the list autosync utility in turboDial. That utility will add and remove those contacts from the list if it's currently in use in turboDial. So it works on the turboDial side. The applying and removing the tag is for the Infusionsoft side of the list, but if that list is currently also over in turboDial, we'll use this utility to add or remove it to the list there. And then lastly, I'm going to show you the global option that we'll use to display tasks and notes in turboDial such that you can pretty easily see the contents of the text message that the contact sent to you inbound. Okay, that's the components. Let's go look at those. All right, here's the contact listing in Infusionsoft, and I've already got this save search set up. It was called SMS follow-up needed. There are no contacts currently in this list, but let's see what the criteria are that were used to build this list, and it's simply this: if the contact has a tag called SMS follow-up needed, then they will show up in this list. Okay. Now let's look at the automation that gets built, or that we have built to handle it. It looks pretty simple, right? There's the 4 API goals I mentioned that we needed. I'll go through each one of those, and then we just need 2 sequences. We've got a section of our automation for adding people to the list, and we have a section of our automation for removing people from the list. So when is someone going to get added to the list? When they send a text message inbound, turboDial is going to trigger this API goal. And you can see the configuration of these API goals if you go over to turboDial support, to the support guide documents. In the automation tools area, you can see, for example, here's the automation triggered when sending and receiving text messages. You'll also be referring to this one, automation triggered when saving a call outcome, and also automation triggered when an outbound call is answered. That's the different kinds of API goals that we're going to be using. Okay, when that text message comes inbound, this API goal will be triggered, and it will begin running the contents of this sequence. This sequence, as you can see from the title, it's going to apply a tag, and then it's going to send an auto-sync HTTP post to add this contact to our list. Here's the tag. You saw it already before, SMS follow-up needed. That gets applied here. And then here's the HTTP post to the auto-sync utility. You can look up in the turboDial support guides how to set up these auto-syncs. I happen to know that this list is number 514. There's other ways of identifying your list, but you can find in the support guide how to identify the actual list ID if you choose to use that. So that's what's inside of the sequence. It's very simple, only 2 steps. When we want to remove them from the list, we'll have one of 3 different API goals that will be triggered. First of all, if we call that contact back by telephone, this API goal will get triggered when that call connects to them. Or if we send them an SMS message back, this API goal will be triggered. Or lastly, if we save a call outcome in turboDial for that contact, where the call outcome is called SMS follow-up complete, then that API goal will be triggered. Let's show you the call outcomes in our turboDial account. Custom fields for the note records. Here's all the custom fields for our note records. The first one is called call outcome. I'm going to edit that drop down, and there it is right there, SMS follow-up complete. That's the custom field that will cause that API goal to be triggered. The sequence, when a remove comes in, either one of these 3 goals is triggered, is going to be just the opposite of the other one. First of all, we're going to remove that tag. SMS follow-up needed will now be removed since they are no longer needing follow-up, and they will be pulled out of the list. And if they happen to be over in the turboDial side in a list there, we'll send an auto-sync HTTP post over to remove them from that list in turboDial. Now, you see that these 4 API goals also exist over here on the right. And why do I have those there? Well, this is more of a Infusionsoft Pro level technique that many of you probably have not actually encountered. If a goal is on the left-hand side feeding into a sequence, then that's called a start goal. But if the goal is on the right-hand side where the sequence feeds into the goal, then that's called a stop goal. If any of these goals gets triggered, it's going to stop anything that might be happening inside of this sequence. Likewise, if this goal gets triggered, it will stop anything that might be happening inside of this sequence. So if you notice, this is the inbound text message receive goal, the same thing here. So when this goal gets triggered, this one also gets triggered. This goal gets triggered and it starts applying the tag and sending the autosync HTTP post to turboDial. If this sequence happened to be recently running and was still in progress, it will stop because we've also triggered this goal. So that's going to stop anything that might be underway here. Likewise, if this is still underway and we send them an SMS back while this Infusionsoft automation is still running, we send them an SMS back and that API goal gets triggered, which means this one gets triggered, which is going to stop that. So this is not actually critical for this particular campaign to have these stop goals, but if you're trying to become a professional in how you approach campaign builder in Infusionsoft, you should be looking for wherever a stop goal could make your campaigns more reliable. Now the other component, because we've gone through the API goals and we've gone through the sequences, the other component I was going to mention is the global option in turboDial to display tasks and notes. Let's pull up my turboDial here. Global options, if you're account admin, when you're logged into turboDial, you'll see this red pencil. And you can open it up and see all your global options. Here's the one, display contact tasks due. I have set that to on. And I've said include contact notes with those tasks. I've set that to on also. So in a minute, we'll show you what that gives us. So now I'm going to do a demonstration. We're going to walk through these steps. Right now, if you noticed, as I said, there's no contacts currently in that SMS follow-up needed list. So I'm going to have 3 different contacts send text messages in to that list. I'm going to start with one from my cell phone. And that one's come in. Got another turboDial panel set up here, and I'm going to send that same phone number some text messages from it also. So let's send one from this number here. Can I get an appointment to see house 2? So now we've sent that in. Let's choose another number so we can masquerade as a different contact and send another SMS. Let's just get that same content. So that's masquerading as a third contact. All right. We have now sent 3 text messages over. One from Al Joe asking about house number 1. Brad is asking about house number 2. Dirk is asking about house number 3. Now I'm going to actually refresh this so you no longer see that these text messages are on my turboDial screen. I'm coming down later. I'm going to work on my turboDial list. Let's refresh our save search. 2 of them have arrived. The third one will come shortly. There's a delay in the Infusionsoft automation. Whenever turboDial triggers an API goal, the automation in Infusionsoft starts running, but it does usually get queued up and have some short delays, usually within a couple minutes it has been completed. At the moment, I've got 2 of these contacts showing up. Let's see if the third one is here yet. Yep, third one is there now. So I've got all 3 of them here. Now I'm going to sit down with turboDial, and I want to bring that list in. And I'm going to find it here. SMS follow-up needed. Now I'm not using dynamic dial. I'm not using power dial. I'm just going to load that right into plain old list dialing in turboDial. And you can see I'm viewing 1 of 3. I've got 3 people here. And if I look at their tasks tab, because I turned on that global option to view their tasks and their notes, the top note here visible to me is this message from Joe, from Al Joe, saying, can I get an appointment to see house number 1? So I know right away, oh, okay, that's probably something I want to get back to him on. So I'm going to give him a call. So I'm going to call Aljo. And now he's answered, and we'll just let that finish as a phone call. We're done now. We have followed up with Aljo and set up an appointment with him to see house number 1. Let's go to our next contact. Brad Colson. What's he want? Oh, can I get an appointment to see house number 2? I think in the case of Brad, I'm just going to send him a message back, and I'll say, sure, is Tuesday at 1 p.m. okay? Okay, now I've sent that message back to Brad. Just ignore the fact that that came in here. The fact is, all of these numbers I'm using here are test numbers in turboDial, and so messages that I send out will often come right back into turboDial. Now let's go to Dirk. That's the next person in my list. I think I will just, in his case, I think I'm just going to save a call outcome, because I've talked to Dirk when I saw him at lunchtime, let's say. So I'm not going to follow up particularly with any message or text or call at this time. I'm just going to save a call outcome saying I've already performed the follow-up for Dirk. Okay. So now I've gotten through my list. If I try to navigate, I've reached the end of my list, so there's nobody there anymore. If I go back over here to Infusionsoft, well, I wonder what's going on because I've got 3 here. If I refresh this list, okay, the saved search now comes back as being empty because there are no more contacts in it. So again, this automation using API goals triggered by turboDial, either from text messages I received, text messages I sent, calls I made, or call outcomes I saved, resulted in an automatic management of my list by adding people when follow-up was needed and removing them when the follow-up was complete. So we've gone through all of those steps where we showed you how when a contact sends an SMS inbound, automation added them to the follow-up needed list. The agent loaded the follow-up needed list and worked through that list using list dialing, navigate the list and make that follow-up for each of those contacts. For each of those contacts, we either sent an SMS back, or we called them, or we saved a call outcome, and the automation removed them from the list so that we didn't have to worry about them again. All right, that's a demonstration of workflow automation using SMS follow-up as the example. Thanks, everybody.